What's up guys, I'm back here with another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on our Python tutorial series with lists. So let's get started. Let's open a new file. Let's go File, Save As. Alright, let's change the file name to lists, and now let's change the type to a Python file. Alright, and now that we've done that, what even is a list? So a list is basically a collection of items which is unordered and changeable, and that's basically all you have to know. It's just a collection of items. So in Python, lists are written with square brackets. So here's a list about my favorite sports. Sports equals, notice the square brackets. And this list is going to be made up of strings, but lists can be made up of integers and floating point values and stuff like that. So tennis, basketball, and American football. And notice how all these items are separated with a comma. That's just to help Python know that these are separate items in a list. Alright, so now let's print this. Print sports. Alright, now let's run this. And we get over here the contents of our list. Python also has a great function called the len function. And that basically just tells you the length of the item. And it works on iterable items. And that just means like that those items can be looped over, but don't worry about that too much because we're going to get into that later. So we can do print len of sports. Alright, so now let's just print the length, and we get the length is 3. And len also works with strings, so try that on your own time. So let's say we wanted to access tennis. We wanted to print out tennis without printing out the entire list. So how would we do that? Well, there's this thing called list indexing. And it basically just accesses items at a certain position. And list indexing starts off with 0. And many people get tripped up with this because they think it starts off with 1, but it starts off with 0. So we can go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on. But our list only has 3 items. So 1, 2, and 3. Each of these indexes corresponds to these values. Alright. So based on that, we know that tennis is at 0. So we can do print the name of the list, which in this case is sports, and you put square brackets, but this isn't creating a new list. This is just indexing, and we go 0. Now let's run this, and we get tennis. Alright, so that's pretty cool. So what else can we do with this? Well, there's also something slicing. So slicing takes part of the list. We can do tennis and basketball with slicing. We can do basketball and American football with list slicing. And this is how list slicing works. So you do the name of your list. So in this case it's sports. And you do the start index and the stop index. So let's say we want tennis and basketball. So we would do start at 0, and then we would do 2. But you might be wondering, wouldn't it be 1? Because basketball is at index 1. But list slicing starts at the first value and stops at the second value. And there's actually a colon over here. Alright, so now let's try printing this out. Print sports 0 and 2. Now let's run this, and we get tennis and basketball. And there's finally one last thing, which is the step. And step is basically the interval at which elements are included in the slice. And basically it just works like this. So it's the name of the list, and then you have start and stop. So let's say 0, 2, and step. So let's say we wanted tennis and basketball. We would just do step 2. So it takes every second value. Tennis, American football. Alright, so now let's add step. So let's actually remove this because we don't want a substring anymore, and we'll put 2. So let's run this, and we get tennis and American football. And now there's one more thing, which is negative indexing. And negative indexing is basically the same thing, except it starts from here. It just starts from the right to the left. And what's confusing about negative indexing is that this value all the way to the right is actually -1. It's not 0, because 0 can't be negative. Alright, so now let's do print sports -1, and we get American football. You can also do this. You can go -1, and this just says we don't want a specific index. We don't want a certain range of values. We just want it to start from all the way to the right, going all the way to the left. So let's run this, and we get American football, basketball, and tennis. And we can change we can also change the values of the elements in a list, because I said before you could change them. So you just do it like this. You say the name of the list, sports, and you give the index. I'm going to change American football to cricket. And now let's just print sports, and let's run this, and we get tennis, basketball, and cricket. You can check if an item exists in a list if you use an if statement. You can say if basketball, and you use a new keyword here. It's called in, and it's basically what it says. It just checks to see if basketball is in sports. So the in keyword is pretty self-explanatory. And now let's just do print basketball is one of my favorite sports. Let's run this, and we don't get any input. Let's see why. So first let's check spelling. If basketball seems to be good, B-A-S. Oh, I see. Yeah, so we misspelled this. So you always want to be careful with this. Basketball. Let's run this now, and we get basketball is one of my favorite sports. You can add items to lists, and in order to do that, you use the append function. Append basically just adds whatever values passed to it to the end of this list. So let's do sports.append cricket. Print sports. And over here we see tennis, basketball, American football, and cricket. You can also do this. You can use the insert, and that just adds an item at a specific index. So we can do sports.insert. So first you give the index you want to insert in. So let's say 1. Now let's say bowling. So let's run this, and we get tennis, bowling, basketball, and American football. And now let's go to removing items. The remove method just removes the specific item. So we can do sports.remove basketball. And now let's run this, and we only have tennis and American football. And there's also the pop method, which removes the item at the specific index, or the last item if the index isn't specified. So let's just say, let's remove tennis. Let's run this, and we have basketball and American football. The clear method just empties the list. So do clear, go like this, and let's run this, and see we just have an empty list. There's nothing in it. And now let's get to copying lists. You can't copy a list by simply saying new sports is equal to sports. So new sports would essentially just contain what sports contains. So if you change sports, you would change new sports. So what if you just want to copy a list and just make it a separate list? We can use the copy method. So we can do new sports equals sports.copy. And now let's see if this actually works. We can do new sports.append cricket. And now let's print both of these. Print new sports. Let's run this. And we see that these are now two different lists. Python has many different list methods, more than I could cover in one method. I tried to cover what I feel are the most important methods, but if you want to explore Python lists some more, I'm going to put a link in the description to the Python documentation, which tells you all the methods of lists that are actually available. And there's tons. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe.